or something. I don't
What
know.
kind of animals?
Animals, pets.
Well,
Pets, yeah.
Betty and Dick and Betty.
Yeah, tell us about pets once he's ready. Tell
About
us-
what?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell us about your pets.
Well,
Mike,
Mike, was a black and white dog, and
Shepherd,
um,
mongrel.
yeah, and he was trained to be a cow dog. I mean, he could drive cows pretty well. And our plumbing, the outhouse was, I don't know, 200-300 feet from the house. Maybe I don't know, 200 feet probably.
A couple of feet.
And we had an old outhouse, and the hole was getting pretty well full. and I was probably,
You dug the holes by hand with
I was about
spade
8 years
and
old.
shovel.
About 8 years old, and that was my project one time and I had little or no help, I think, digging that hole. And I don't know, it was just an off and on thing. When I wasn't doing something else, I was supposed to be digging that outhouse. And then later on,
Well, you didn't tell how big the hole was.
well, I don't know how big the hole was.
Well, typically they were about, 3.5 feet square,
That's about
and
what
about
it was.
6 foot deep.
That's about what it was, which I wasn't that tall. Got up there a ways. That's okay. Don't worry about it. And
But tell them about the new toilet, and that's what they had.
yeah,
when
that's what I was
grew
going to
up.
say. Later on, well, Fort Peck Dam was built in the 30s.
Yeah,
or
under Franklin Roosevelt. In fact,
30s and 40s.
Uncle Herman worked on that hauling dirt, and he was so proud to be able to say that he saw President Franklin Roosevelt.
And part of the dirt they removed with other equipment, but mostly it was done with horses, and if you had a horse and brought it with you, they would pay you more. They'd pay you for the use of the horse and you.
And when they completed it, it was the largest earth-filled dam in the world.
And they moved the dirt through pipes and mixed it with water.
And you call that mud.
Yeah, and they would move the pipes around to where they would put it on the dam, back and forth. And I don't know that they even made big equipment like they use today. That's kind of common, pulling by in Caterpillars or something. But anyway, they got that done, and a lot of leftovers were around there, and where we went to church at Mona, they were doing Bible school in the summer, and one of the things that they had available pretty cheap were beds, and they were full-size beds with about 100-pound or 110-pound weight on one end, and they were a type of a rollaway. And so, you do that, well...
They folded up.
Yeah, they'd fold up, and so you
So you could
have
push
like
them
a
against the wall.
classroom and then put it down to sleep on it. And while they were there were some toilets, a concrete base and, wooden toilets, and I think it was just a one-seater,
Yeah.
People that had big
But it was
houses and stuff
fancy.
had two-seaters. And it
It
had,
had fold-up seat, fold-down seat,
it had
concrete.
and the concrete bottom, they had written the date that it was made, and it was Twyla's birthday, and coincidentally. But we really thought we were uptown whenever
Oh
we
yeah,
got
it was
that.
a shingled roof.
Yeah.
And, fancy. It had a pipe that went up for ventilation thing. It was fancy.
And whenever it was dark, I was big enough. I was expected to go out there by myself, so I would.
It had no
go,
light.
I would go, yeah, and there was no lights,
And there
no
was
yard
no yard
lights.
light out there close to it.
So as soon as I'd shut the door, I'd start calling for Mike, the
The
dog,
dog.
and make sure he went with me. But I didn't call him Mike. I called him something Bruzo or something that made him sound tougher than that.
Yeah. But there was a neat thing with that. I always thought it was great, man. I didn't know how people lived without it. It was It was made out of plywood, but it had a sheep skin dyed brown, that sat over the regular hole, and so it was nice and warm, woolly, in the wintertime when you went. And of course, the paper wasn't regular toilet paper. It was Sears and Roebuck.
Yeah, we got all the catalogs.
Alden catalogs.
Alden,
and
Spiegel.
Most of those were in black and white, which was a good thing because it was a little bit softer than color.
Yeah.
And so it was a big deal in the fall when the folks got peaches, because they wrapped the peaches in paper that wasn't very good either, but it was a lot better in catalog.
But whenever they started putting that slick paper in the catalogs, then I think we got started with regular toilet paper or some other kind of paper, maybe corn cobs or something. I don't know, but it wasn't.
It wasn't the
too
greatest.
Good. No.
The good old days there weren't so good sometimes.
But it worked.
Yeah.
But the original.
And the door in the toilet was in the south, so you didn't get that north wind.
That's good thinking.
The original electricity, and I think it was there when they moved there, was 6 volt. And they had a 6 volt generator just outside the house a little ways, but pretty close to the house. And that produced enough electricity to where you could have lights on, usually just one at a time, or something. Like if somebody was in the kitchen, then you wouldn't have other lights on. And I don't even know that the
Except
bedrooms.
if you used a kerosene lamp. That's what
Well,
most
they
of the
had,
people used.
yeah. Well, we used they were, like 15 watt bulbs, something like that, and ran off a 6 volt battery, and that battery, I think there was only one battery, but it was in the cellar also, or before the other ones.
Did the generator run on on gas or
Yeah,
kerosene or what?
well, we really thought we were doing pretty good when we got 32 volt electricity. That opened all
32
kinds.
volt DC.
It opened all kinds of new things, and at that time, you could buy appliances, 32 volt appliances,
Yeah.
and like
Even a hair cutter.
a cream separator that we had, converted it to a 32 volt battery
So
or
you
motor.
didn't have to turn the crank.
Yeah, 32 volt. And this one, that cream separator, when they bought, the one for 32 volt, there was no crank on it. It had to run the motor. So, but
And that egg incubator ran on 32 volt DC.
yeah,
Yeah. And
But-
but we had Christmas tree lights that ran on 32 volt DC. Dad converted a bunch of the stuff over
Yeah.
when we got 120 volt.
yeah.
And didn't Mom even have a mixer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was a
why not?
mixer, a toaster. There wasn't any hair dryers, but she got by without that.
But in the summer and everything, we washed our hair outside generally with rainwater. We collect the rainwater off the roof. And so when our brother Lester was born, I was 3 years old. Well, I was 3 years old the day they brought him home, 5 days after my birthday. Anyway, they brought him home, and so we had a tank that it was for watering cows and stuff. It was about 3 feet high. That
You
set
mean that
out
we
there.
caught the water off
Yeah, on the
roof?
east side of the house.
Yeah, the cows didn't drink out of it.
I know, but that's what it was made for.
Well, right.
And it was about 3 feet high or so, and maybe 8 feet long.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it was covered with boards, except where the rain gutter downspout ran into it. And it was right where the downspout came in. It was right under Mom's bedroom window. Well, Mom and Dad's. But when Mom came home from the hospital back then, they had them stay in bed for 10 days, okay? And they had to lie real still on the 9th day, because that supposedly is when everything fell back in place, okay? It was a little odd, But anyway, I was not supposed to get in that rainwater collection tank. Well, I was out there. It was just after Lester was born, and the rubber ball went down in that tank, and the tank was empty. So I crawled down through that small hole to get that ball. Well, I got the ball, but I couldn't get back out because, you know, I wasn't strong enough to pull myself up that 3 feet. And so I was stuck. And so I remember being really worried that it was going to start raining, you know, and I was going to drown in that tank.
And it rained about every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, but it could have happened while I was in there. Anyway, I knew what was going to happen to me if I said anything. So finally, my fear of drowning exceeded my fear of getting a paddling. And so I went, Mom! And I did it about 4 times, I guess, and Mom sent our sister Lila out to check on me, and she got me out of there. But I did get a paddling, all right.
That's a good one.